Welcome, welcome. Welcome back to From Middle Class to Millions. On December 11th, between 7 and 8 Eastern, I am going to be conducting the webinar that is going to help you build $1 million net worth and become financially independent at any age. I am so tired of hearing people talk about that it's too late for them to get started with their money. They have regrets. They feel paralyzed. They don't know how to start. They don't know whom to ask. They don't know what to do. And so I want to give you the strategies for building that $1 million net worth and becoming financially independent. I want you to have access to me, a multimillionaire who used to work a 9-to-5 job, very much like you, and built $1 million net worth. Some of the things that you won't find by simply Googling, the things that you're Googling late at night, the things that you're asking ChatGPT at 3 a.m. because you're up, because you're worried. I want to give you the strategies that will enable you to build that $1 million net worth and understand what it means when you become financially independent. I'm not talking about bags and jets and yachts, although those things are nice. I am talking about having the peace to walk away from something that isn't working for you, whether it be a job, whether it be a relationship. I want you to be able to take care of yourself and to have joy and to take care of your family. I want you to be able to sleep well at night. And I want you to know that it is not too late and you can do this at any age. So I want to see you on December 11th, between 7 and 8 Eastern. We are going to be talking about the strategies that are needed in order to build this multi-million-dollar net worth. You can get there if you show up and I see you there. All right, welcome, welcome. Welcome back to From Middle Class to Millions. We're talking about Lisa today. I want to round out the story of Lisa, and I think it's so important for me to talk about Lisa. If you recall, if you haven't listened to the past 2 episodes where I told you about Lisa's story and how she arrived at this place at 53 years old, I think it's very important for you to go back and listen to those episodes because many of you will be able to see yourself in Lisa. Many of you will be able to hear some of the things that concerned Lisa that prevented her for so long from looking at her money and what made her decide to finally take charge. And it wasn't because, oh my goodness, I'm 53 years old. Actually, there was another pivotal moment. So make sure that you go back and listen to the past 2 episodes about Lisa's journey. Now, I want to make it very clear that the point that I'm talking about in Lisa's journey today in this episode is simply 30 days in. We are not talking about Lisa and I working together for years on end. No, this is a 30-day transformation that you're going to hear from and about Lisa. And what makes it so fascinating to me is that, and I'm surprised every single time, even though I know that these strategies work and that you can get results because I have many clients who have done this. It is the fact that it's very, very, it happens in such a very short period of time and people have been experiencing angst for so long. You know what I mean? Like, how is it that 30 days can make such a tremendous difference in your life to put yourself at ease? And you've been worrying about this thing for years on end. It's fascinating to me. But I'm jumping the gun. I'm already revealing that, yes, 30 days in, Lisa's feeling good. But I want you to know that. I want you to know that you don't have to continue to suffer for years. And that kind of like, you know, when you talk about working out and people decide to really pay attention to what they're eating and their nutrition and their wellness. And they're like, why didn't I start this sooner? Because they feel better. And nobody ever regrets taking care of their bodies. Nobody ever regrets focusing on their nutrition, drinking more water, getting more sleep, eliminating stress to the best of their ability. There are no regrets there. And every single time people who start on that journey say, why didn't I start this sooner? And I think this is the exact same thing with Lisa and with the folks, my clients who have successfully started this journey and they're like, why didn't I do this sooner? Now, to be fair, much like Lisa, people are like, I didn't know that people like me were out there who could help them. They didn't know that they could find someone who could help them with the strategies, who could help them with the mindset, who can help them actually hold their hand and take the steps and answer all of the questions that they had. They didn't know that there is somebody who too had built this $1 million net worth while working a 9-to-5 job, who didn't sell a huge company, who wasn't jet setting all over the world in a private jet or on a yacht. They didn't know that, you know what, it was actually possible that quote unquote regular everyday people who didn't grow up rich, who didn't grow up with a trust fund, or who didn't become crazy wealthy because of a business that they sold, could actually build this $1 million net worth and become financially independent. So to be fair, I get it. I get it that some people are actually searching and Googling and looking for the answers, but they actually don't know where to find this individual. So I want to go back to the very first time I talked to Lisa, and she was giving me, you know, the history and the rundown and what was going on in her life and what she'd been doing, and how she regarded money over all of the years, and now what brought her to this point. And one of the things that she said to me was, you know, she would like to have $1 million net worth. And then she started chuckling immediately after saying it. And the reason why I'm highlighting that is because it touches on what Lisa believed, and it touches on what Lisa wants, right? Lisa believed that it was kind of possible to have $1 million net worth, and she wanted it, but she was dubious. Because look, to say I want to have $1 million net worth and not have any way of knowing how you're going to get there, yeah, you sound a little delulu, right? You sound a little delusional. You sound as though, yeah, I'm saying I want this thing, but I don't have a plan. I'm not taking any steps toward it. I know that it would change my life, but yeah. So when she said it, she chuckled because it seemed incredulous, and she thought that, oh, she was going to be judged. She was also surprised to hear that I was like, oh yeah, that's totally possible. Let's talk about it. Let's get to work. Now, there are a couple of things that Lisa had going for her, besides the fact that she was on the call and she was ready to take charge of her finances. She had, if you listen to the previous episodes, you realize that she had recently sold a property. She had a couple of 401ks kicking about, and I know a lot of you folks who've been in the workforce for a while and who've probably changed jobs, you have some 401ks that you left at previous employers that you haven't really delved into. You're not quite sure what was in there. You're not quite sure what they were invested in. You weren't sure about how they were performing, but they were out there. And that was the case with Lisa. She had a couple of 401ks that were kind of scattered about. But I also knew that Lisa had a good 12 to 15 years before she would reach traditional retirement age. So she could continue earning for still a very significant amount of time. And I know if you've listened to me for a while, you know that a lot of times there are a lot of folks that within 10 to 15 years can become financially independent. And so, but in order to do that, in order to hit that number, whatever your personal number is, you got to have a strategy. You've got to have a plan. You cannot just stumble upon this financial independence. I mean, some people get lucky. Some people may get an inheritance. Some people may sell a business, and that's great. But for most of us, right, we're going to have a plan for this. We're going to have to be strategic about creating financial independence and hitting our number within 10 to 15 years. So I knew, given high level what Lisa had told me on that very first consult, that it wasn't only possible, it was probable. And how can I say that? Well, because I can do the numbers in my head. I've done this so many times. I've worked with so many clients. I did it for myself. So I know that it's not only possible, but it was highly probable that Lisa could do this. So I then set out when Lisa and I got together. And again, remember, this is in the first month. We're talking very high level, but I'm laying out the plan for her so that I can get an understanding of what's important to her. She could of course get an understanding of what we were going to do and how we could work together, and also get into her mind to get an understanding of where she was coming from. What were her fears? What were her concerns? What were her goals? What were her dreams? What were her wishes? All of that's important. It is not solely about throwing numbers onto a spreadsheet. That is important too. But if Lisa didn't feel comfortable with the options that were provided to her, it wasn't going to work. And ultimately, it's Lisa's comfort level. It's Lisa's financial independence number. It's Lisa's life that we're talking about. So it is incredibly important when I'm working with you to talk to you about these things. And for many people, this is the very first time. The very first time that they're finding a safe space to talk about money. And you know, you've heard me say this a million times. We don't talk about money in society as much as we should. We don't talk about it in a way where people can feel comfortable talking about personal finance. We either hear about the markets and how people are performing. And if you don't even know how to manage your own money, when you hear the verbiage from the markets, you're like, what the heck are these people talking about? And how do I get to a point where not only am I investing, but I have a basic understanding of what they're doing? Because many people are throwing their money into the market through 401ks because that's the right thing to do, right? But they don't understand. And I think that it is important to get some financial literacy. You do not have to be an economist. You don't have to be a financial advisor at the end of the day. But to have that basic literacy is very, very important so that it can help you get some comfort level and understand what it is that you need to be comfortable. And the comfort doesn't only come from the numbers you have, and so that's why it's important to talk about how you're feeling, how you grew up, what was going on. Those things matter because they impact how you proceed with money and how you manage money and how it affects everybody in your circle. All right? Okay, so Lisa now, she had a couple things going for her that we talked about going into our working relationship, right? And so I knew that Lisa had this property. And it was important for me to know that this was a big deal, that Lisa had created this lump sum of money from the sale of the property. She was very proud of the fact that she, way back when, saw this as an opportunity and decided to purchase this property. And now she'd sold it and the money was just sitting there. And I was very conscious that I didn't want Lisa to do what I've seen a lot of people do when they have this lump sum of money. They either do one of two things. The money sits there because they're not sure what to do with it, and it slowly whittles away. Folks, slowly dig into the money, maybe because even though it may be in a separate savings account, if they go a little over on their spending, they know that that money's there. If they, want to go on a special trip, they know that that money's there. And over time, that money starts to erode. It starts to disappear. And I know that Lisa, in speaking with her, had certain goals that she wanted for that money. She had ideas about what she wanted to do with that money. And I know that if it sits there for too long, there would be the possibility that she would start to whittle away at that. I've seen clients do that. They've come to me and they said, oh, we did this and we had this lump sum of money and we should have paid off our debt, or we should have invested it, or we should have da-da-da, but we didn't know what to do. We were immobilized. We left it there and now it's dropped from 100,000 and now we only have 10, or it's dropped from 250 and now we only have 75, or something like that. And so I knew immediately I wanted to get some guardrails around it so that she could actually do with that money what she had intended to do when she came to me. And that's really important to keep that goal in mind so that anytime Lisa's thinking about, hey, should I dip into that pot? At least we could sit there and hold a mirror up and say, is that what you want to do? Because just remember, you said you wanted to do this. Because sometimes we just act. Look, we're human, right? And so I wanted to avoid any future regrets by at least giving Lisa some options and reminders of what her ultimate goals are. And your goals can change. I get that. But I just wanted her to remain on course, right? So that was the one thing. I didn't want that money to be whittled away and used for things that then she couldn't remember what the heck she used the money for. And secondly, I didn't want her to leave that money in that brick and mortar bank account, making its 0.01% interest. I immediately said, okay, let's shift that over to a high yield savings account, because for no other reason, we could start making, 4.5% interest. Now, of course, the interest rates have gone down a little bit, but still, if they're down to 4 or if they're down to 3.5, it's still better than that 0.01%. So we want to shift that money so that it's not eroding, right? And instead still making money while she's deciding what she wants to do with it. So creating a real allocation strategy based on her priorities. And if you recall, she wanted to use this money to help support her kids in college, and she wanted to put some of this money towards her retirement. Now, in the process of collecting all of Lisa's information, in the beginning, I am really, really committed to 30 days to organize your money, right? I want you to know that I'm here to hold your hand, to work with you, to eliminate the overwhelm. We're going to get this stuff organized in 30 days. And that's how I knew that things were scattered around. We bring them together, the different bank accounts. We saw what was going on. We also, during this time, uncovered some additional debt that Lisa didn't know about. If you recall, her husband was the one who was managing all of the finances, and she had thought that after they had sold the property, that there was some additional money there that they had used to pay off some of the debt, but come to find out there's still some outstanding debt, which was surprising. Not a problem, but now we know. You see, now we know what we're working with. So having that idea of, okay, we're going to move the money to a high yield savings account. We're going to keep in mind the allocation strategy. It's college and retirement. And we may have to consider the debt, right? We may have to put that may go towards the property proceeds, may go towards the debt, or it may not. But at least we could lay everything out on the table. And then I wanted Lisa to also get an understanding of what the outstanding money was doing in her retirement account. I want you at the end of the day to understand simply and have a basic literacy of what is going on with your money in your accounts. If it's going up, if it's going down, what it's invested in, how it's performing. I wanted to also get a sense of what Lisa could stomach. And I wanted her to know the predictions of what this money would do in the next 12 to 15 years before she actually retired. So laying out her net worth, her current net worth, was really important to me so that, again, we're not guessing. Right? We're not afraid of what we don't know. We're not afraid of what we're imagining in our heads. We're actually putting the facts on paper, and we're going to build wealth based off of those facts. We don't need to be an expert. Like I said, we don't need to be an expert, and you don't need to know everything about the market, but you do need to have some literacy so that it will enable you to have that education, which would make you feel more comfortable about what's going on with your money and why you're doing what you're doing. The other thing that we talked about, because I thought it was really important for us to have a long-term plan. Now, of course, you're like, what do you mean? All of these things are a long-term plan. You're talking about the next 12 to 15 years. And yes, but I was thinking about a long-term plan when it comes to income. Okay? So remember, Lisa was a 1099 employee, and she was a little concerned about how long she would be employed with this particular company. And she has ideas about transitioning and doing other work. And so we decided that we were going to talk about that because that's important, right? we have to talk about the income aspect. We can't only talk about the income that's being created through your investments. I mean, that's great. But what are you doing today? For Lisa's particular situation, she's still working and she still needed to create income. And even though she had the proceeds from the sale of the property, that was allocated to something else. So how are we going to continue to build our net worth if she's not working? And so this discussion about money also leads into what you're doing in terms of your 9 to 5 or your business. How are you generating income? This is what money's about. And when we're talking about money, we're talking about your ability to negotiate your salary. We're talking about your ability to price your services or your goods. We're talking about how you talk about money in all aspects of your life. So we really needed to hone in on the long-term plan for work, and we needed to hone in on Lisa's husband's long-term plan for work, because if you remember, he was doing manual labor and he was approaching 60, and we needed to come up with something realistic because he was going to continue working, but this was taking a toll on his body. And transitioning out of any job requires intentionality. It requires a strategy. And so knowing what was going to be done, how that was going to be done, and getting them on the path to doing it was key. So throughout all these discussions, bear in mind we're running the numbers. I don't work on vague hopes and prayers and maybes and possiblies. I want you to see the real numbers based on what's going on today. I want those numbers to be projected into the future. So I was like showing numbers for the next 12 to 15 years based on what we're doing today. Now, of course, things can change. Of course, things will change. That's life, right? And anybody who'd gotten to 53 years old, like Lisa, knows that. However, seeing everything laid out and seeing where exactly she was in this day and age, right, made it so much clearer. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't perfect. We didn't look at it and say, oh, you're in excellent shape. No, but we knew what we could work with, and we knew that this was at least promising because we could see it. Then what we could do with it, well, that's where the magic begins. And so what I loved about this part of the exercise, right, and working together with Lisa is really the best thing that any of my clients can say to me, especially after the first 30 days. Lisa told me that she could breathe again. Okay? She could finally breathe again. 30 days in, things were clearer. Nothing was lurking in the shadows anymore. She didn't know, there weren't any surprises with her finances. It was all there, laid out on the table in 30 days. And I think this is what's so powerful about actually doing the work and working with someone who can organize in 30 days all of your money so that you know what you're working with. It's clear. It's not scary. Because at least you know what's there. It's not behind a door. It's not lurking in the shadows. 30 days to organize your money. And from there, you can see how your 6-figure paycheck can build your 7-figure net worth. And that's where the breathing comes in. You see? Because you're like, wait a minute. Before, this 6-figure paycheck didn't look like it was doing much at all. It didn't look like it could create much at all. And even though we talk about, making 6 figures, how great it is to make 6 figures, it felt tight, which felt ridiculous, which was confusing. But now you're in the stage where the 6-figure paycheck, you can see that it can build a 7-figure net worth. You can see that because it's all there out in the open for you. And you can see the projections. And that gives you the ability to sleep well at night. And being able to see that, well, then now you can put it to work. You can put yourself to work. You can put the money to work. You can grow that money so that you could actually build wealth. Those are the strategies. That's the order. That's what I do every time. We got to organize that money in 30 days. You look at your 6-figure paycheck and you see that it can build a 7-figure net worth. You see that it can get you to $1 million net worth so that you can relax. And then you get to work so that that money is working harder than you do. It's growing and it's actually building wealth. It works. It worked for Lisa at 53. It works for my clients in their 30s and 40s. It even works for my clients in their 60s and 70s. It works. It always works because it's not too late. It's never too late. It's never too late to take control of your money. But if you're waiting, if you're wondering, if you're looking from the sidelines, you're not going to get there. You're just not going to get there. So I want you to know, and I'm going to ask you these questions, and I want you to think about this. And if any of this resonates with you, I really want you to take a good hard look at what's going on. Because if you have money out there somewhere that's creating anxiety for you instead of working for you, you need this. If you've outsourced your financial life, like my girl Lisa did for decades, you need this. If you haven't started looking at your money at all because you're overwhelmed, because you don't know how, you don't know who to go to, you don't know what to ask, Google and ChatGPT aren't providing the answers, you need this. If you know that if you lost your income tomorrow, that you couldn't survive for the next 6 to 12 months, you absolutely need this. And my gosh, if you are up at night worrying about money at all, you need this. You need these strategies. You need to show up for yourself. You need to take control. And honestly, you really only have 2 options. You can continue doing what you're doing. You can keep your head down and bury it in the sand. You can continue to ignore it. You can look away. You can not talk about it. You can continue hoping and crossing your fingers, hoping that it all works out, hoping that you'll continue to be lucky, or you can continue waiting for the right time. Or your other option is you can decide that today is the day. You can decide that you realize that you need to get your money organized. You need to get it growing for you instead of just hoping it'll be okay. And you know that you can make the choice that Lisa did. And within 30 days, you can have your money organized. You can see your $1 million net worth and begin to breathe again. And you can put that money to work so that you can build wealth. It's possible. It is possible, but you got to choose the right option for you. So listen, if any of Lisa's story resonated with you, any bit of it, I want you to, 1, share this with another woman who needs to hear this. There are a lot of smart, successful women, educated, just powerhouses making good money out there who are stuck. How do I know? I work with them all the time. I was one of them. When you don't know where to turn to get ahead, to start building that $1 million net worth, it is frustrating. So if you have this information by listening to this podcast, please share it with another woman who feels the same way. Let's talk about money more. Let's alleviate this stress. You know, women live longer than men. You know, women make less money than men. We need different strategies in order to build that $1 million net worth and become financially independent. So I want you to share this with another woman because community is all that we've got. And secondly, I want you to book the call with me. I want you to stop waiting. I want you to stop hoping. And I want you to start doing. You're not going to feel 100% ready, but that's okay. I'll be here. I'll help you. All right? So I'll see you next week. I have a special Thanksgiving episode for you. So again, I love you guys. Stay tuned, and I will talk to you next week.